Bom, vamos seguir o programa. Isso da primeira parte da sessão, como eu há pouco, enfim, terminava. Tivemos a falar de talento, competências, de certificação. Agora vamos dar o tal pulo para as pessoas e para a ética. É o tema core que falávamos com os representantes do ilustríssimo painel que se segue. E numa conversa preparatória desta sessão concluímos que tudo assenta, as diferentes perspectivas que vão aqui ser trazidas, todas confluem para o grande core, pessoas e ética nas boas práticas da atividade que nos une, de trabalhar dados. Vou convidar a Sousa Vasco para liderar aqui este próximo passo de dança, que é a subida das senhoras todas ao palco. A Sousa Vasco, eu tenho aqui uma bio desta gente toda, eu não vou ler estas coisas todas, muitas destas senhoras são amplamente conhecidas da nossa sociedade pelos enormes méritos que têm no desempenho das suas atividades. A Sousa Vasco é jornalista, é publisher da Mother Media, basicamente é uma das mentoras, das produtoras, das autoras do The Next Big Idea, que é também o nosso media partner nesta conferência. Portanto, a Ruth fará o favor de apresentar muito brevemente as suas convidadas, que eu peço então para se juntarem a ela. Temos a Liliana Ferreira, Isabel Vaz, Teresa Alpuim, Ana Paula Reis, 4 senhoras estão aqui apresentadas nesta imagem. E que falarão e que endereçarão no tema do painel sobre as suas visões. Estou à procura da ordem. Ruth, siga. Obrigado.
Não, estou com o microfone desligado, não estou? Não consigo perceber se está a funcionar. Está a funcionar. Olá a todos, nós vamos conduzir o nosso painel em inglês, o que vai ser uma pena para as minhas notas, que vinham todas preparadinhas em português, portanto vamos adaptar e vamos improvisar um bocadinho, mas com um painel extraordinário que eu tenho aqui comigo, de certeza que vai ser fácil. Daqui para a frente vamos, como disse, conduzir o resto da conversa em inglês, de forma a podermos ser inclusivos, tal como pretende ser o tema da nossa discussão, e temos muitas pessoas que nos estão a acompanhar remotamente, que é um cheiro dos dias, portanto vamos a partir daqui fazer as apresentações de modo a que todos possam participar na nossa conversa. Sem ter aqui um detalhe tão grande quanto... I'm sorry. Let's start by introducing these 4 ladies I have with me in this panel. It's quite a contribution for the gender equity in the world. So let's begin with Isabel Vaz. Isabel Vaz is graduated in chemical engineering from Instituto Superior Técnico in Lisbon. She began her professional career as a researcher, and she has also had a 7-year experience at McKinsey. After that, she was invited to found what was then Espírito Santo Saúde and is now Group Luz Saúde, where she is actually the leader and the CEO. Liliana Ferreira is the chair of Fraunhfer, Portugal, and director of its research center. She is also a researcher. She has a lot of work doing in the research field, so I suppose that she will tell us something about it in her presentation too. Let me see what can I say more without taking too much time in this step. Ana Paula Reis is an entrepreneur, co-founder of BridgeWhat, a growth as a service platform in a B2B digital transformation context. As an investor, she has served as a member of the board at Executive Committee of Bind Venture Capital. On top, she has served as a non-executive board member in several real estate development companies and as advisor on the board of business creation of EIT Manufacturing. And more also, but you can also listen from her. Teresa Alpuim is a professor of statistics in the Faculty of Sciences at the University of Lisbon. She graduated in mathematics, concentrating on statistics, operations research and computing, and attained a PhD in probability theory. She is also now the head of the Statistics and Operations Research Department. So now that we have all of our 4 speakers with this first introduction already done, I will start by asking The first one, I believe it will be Isabel. Can be?
The achievement of diversity, equity and inclusion in modern society is of the utmost importance to improve the quality of life. And data science is an important and powerful tool to help us to understand how far we are from these goals and what directions we should take. Let's start to talk a little bit about diversity. There are many kinds of diversity, gender, religion, but I will concentrate in the diversity of nationalities and cultures within an advanced society and how this might contribute to economic growth and to a more advanced society. When you think of a country or society with a diversity of nationalities and cultures, you think about immigration or migrations. Let's take the example of Portugal. Portugal, unfortunately, it's an aging country with serious demographic fragilities. The birth rate, for example, is around 1.4 children per woman, is one of the lowest in Europe, together with Germany. I can show you this graph that shows the age pyramid of Portugal in 1971, which are the light blue colored bars, and the age pyramid of Portugal in 2016, which are the white bars. And you can see the difference, how the youngest generations are now in much less number. Immigration, in a way, can be a way of helping to mitigate this problem, including the much-spoken problem of lack of sustainability of the social security. But it's much more than that. For example, here I can show two age pyramids, but now they are in percentage. The blue is the nationals, Portuguese, and the yellow is the foreigners, where you can see that on the whole, the percentage of people between, let's say, 20 and 40, it's much higher. But more than that, more than the problem of the aging society, well-managed immigration, that means featuring inclusion, integration, and equality of opportunity contributes significantly to economic growth and creates a more dynamic and more interesting, more creative society, and with ties to other nations. Universities, I was asked to give the perspective of the academia. I think the universities have an important role in attracting young people with high potential by offering them the possibility to pursue their studies. Certain countries have done this strategy with very successful. And this really, I think it should be done because it has many advantages. I can outline two of them. One is that if the students stay after their graduation, that helps to solve the problem of lack of qualified professionals in certain areas. And this was a point that was mentioned by previous speakers. The other thing is that the diversity of cultures, different ideas, different ways of thinking is very important for development of universities. University, by definition, is supposed to create and to disseminate universal knowledge. And this is only possible if you have different ideas, different cultures, different origins, and bringing students from other countries will also bring teachers and researchers, and is certainly a mission that universities should have. Going back to Portugal, I must say, however, that Portugal requires a national strategy to attract, receive, and support foreign students. And this strategy up to now does not exist. There may be isolated good examples, like one school that invested in this aspect, or one municipality, but not as a generalized attitude. However, our country is a very attractive destiny of studies for young people of Portuguese-speaking countries. However, they have to navigate through thick bureaucracy to have their previous degrees recognized, to have their visas. And on top of that, the general rule, there are exceptions, as here in Portugal there are always exceptions, but the general rule is that they have to pay an annual tuition fee of 7,000 euros a year. And this is not the way, I think. This is not attractive. Of course, diversity and inclusion raise the question of equality of rights and opportunities. And this goes both for national and foreign. And to achieve this equality, wealth distribution is a key point. Again, data science can help us to understand how far we are from an equitable society. I have some graphs to show. There are many indicators that can be used to describe distribution of wealth and the distribution of richness. The most used is probably the Gini index. So I'm going to show you graphs of the Gini index that try to compare distribution of wealth among countries in the world and within the countries. Oops. Here it is. On the left, there is the World Gini Index in 91. And on the right, 2001, and the next slide has more recent years. I don't know if you are familiarized with the Gini Index. Very shortly, this cannot point. No. But for example, if you see the blue curve, is that you order the countries by GDP per capita, and then you make clusters of 10%. So the 10% more poor, the second 10% more poor, up to the 10% richest. And then you, on the vertical, you mark the points corresponding to accumulated GDP corresponding to that slice of the world population. And then the orange line is a society that is with even distribution of wealth, where there are not, there may be asymmetries, but by random. And the Gini index is the area that is between the two curves. And here it can go from 0 if the curves are equal, if it represents a very equitable and fair society in what concerns richness, and can go to 1 where everybody receives 0 and there's only one very small slice receives everything. So in 91, the Gini index was 0.6. And 10 years later, 2001, which is on the right, it was 0.57, so improved a little bit. There was a better improvement if you go to 2012, where it went down to 0.49, around that. And then 2019, I didn't use the data from 2021 because it's the pandemic and we don't know. So I took the data from 2019, it's 0.45. So there is, in fact, an improvement. However, I must say that the main responsible for this improvement is China. Because in 91, they were in the second more poor, and now they are in the 5th, and then in the 6th. And that, it's more than, around 20% of the world population, so that pulled a lot up. But of course, you can say, but the GDP per capita doesn't say what's going on inside the country, okay? Because you can have very rich countries or medium rich countries, and yet the asymmetries may be very big. Also, we can, I have here another graph where the points represent countries, the line is the trend, and I represent the Gini index of each country against the GDP per capita. And we see that, in fact, more rich countries tend slightly to have better distribution of wealth, but there are a very large variability. Anything can happen. Or, for example, we can see here, on this graph, the countries I took the countries only with population greater than 5 million of people, and I ordered the countries using the Human Development Index, which includes not only GDP per capita, but expectancy of life at birth, number of years of schooling, and the height of the bars corresponds to the Gini index. And it's true, this is only the more developed countries. So the Human Development Index, lower than 100. Portugal is in red. The United States has a good position, but a very high Gini index. Brazil has also, as everybody knows, a very high Gini index. And here are the less developed countries. South Africa is the country with the highest or the worst distribution of wealth. Then I put other countries that are more related culturally and economically to Portugal, like Angola, and Mozambique has also a very high Gini index. So, it is my belief that having access to good education, and this includes good higher education, affordable with high quality, is a factor for an equitable society and to have a more even society in what concerns income and, of course, opportunities. Just finish saying that, in fact, universities have a dual role in fostering economic growth together with diversity and equality. First, they can provide the skills and the knowledge to young professionals to be more productive, more creative, more innovative. And second, universities can give them the tools that make them capable of taking part in the political and economic and social decisions that are necessary to attain diversity, inclusion, and equity. But, and I finish with this alert, also in Portugal, and not only in Portugal, but in many other countries, to achieve these goals, our universities must be more open to contribute to the solution of society's problems by collaborating with diverse economic agents, no matter if they are private companies or public institutions or non-governmental organizations.
So, in English, thank you for your support. And before starting, I would like, of course, to greet the audience, also the online audience, and of course, congratulate the SPA for this event, this amazing environment that we have in here, and also for inviting me once again to be in one of your events. It is a pleasure. And today, I wanted to leave in here with some slides and some thoughts that the main purpose is, of course, to challenge. What I want to bring in here is a vision that we should, I hope, discuss and bring some food for thoughts to be discussed after in our conversation. You ended, Professor Teresa, by saying that universities must collaborate and find ways of interacting and gaining inputs and insights from other society agents, and that's without us knowing, that's how I'm going, exactly what I'm going to talk about, not from the university point of view. I come, of course, from a research center that is private, so it's a non-profit organization that is linked to an international organization, which is Fraunhfer Gesellschaft, with a lot of research centers through the world, mainly in Germany. But it is, and that's the main point, an organization, a research organization that is focused on applied research. So what we want to do in here is to solve real-world problems. And one of the hypotheses, one of the challenges that I would like to bring to this discussion is that, yes, data science has a huge role when it comes to inclusion, to equity, to the topics that we are discussing today, but also from the side of where things are built, from the beginning of the creation of our solutions, even before the data science, even before the data acquisition, we need to include those topics. Ethics is one of them, but we need to include people. And that is the main thing that I try to implement in here. At Fraunhofer AICOS, we normally say in a very simplistic way that our recipe to everything that we do is to see things from three perspectives, being the first, people. And those scratches, those drafts that you see in there, reflect that, the people in their environments, in their day-to-day. And then we bring another layer of perspective to this analysis. These are things, the things that we interact with. The computers, of course, our smart watches, our smartphones, everything that we interact with that acquires data nowadays from everywhere. And then the third layer, the one that we are discussing in here today, intelligence. But what I would like to argue is that intelligence brings nothing if we do not include people. And also that it is the responsibility of us researchers to think from the first day of what will be the impact of what we are developing in people. And it is also our responsibility to interact with the society and to ensure that we are solving real-world problems. I bring you a specific example of how we do that. It's very short, of course, very simplified. But the first step to any project at AICOS is talking to people, no surprise. So we start by this.
Imensas doenças, infecções tropicais importantes, como a malária. A malária é uma infecção que ou se trata em tempo útil ou as consequências podem ser terríveis.
Existem constrangimentos que são facilmente identificados por estes profissionais, nomeadamente quando vão diagnosticar a malária, existem fatores comprometedores. Por exemplo, o tempo de espera que é superior a 2 horas, há uma falta de confiança no técnico que produz os relatórios da pesquisa de plasmódio, também há uma falta de confiança no próprio resultado do teste e muitas vezes nem sequer há teste.
É por isso que nós assistimos a índices de mortalidade por malária na Europa que são extremamente criticáveis, quer dizer, não é aceitável que 7% dos doentes com malária morram na Europa. E se morre na Europa, morre porque o diagnóstico foi tardio e o tratamento chegou tarde.
So the fact that I brought this example, this use case to here has two purposes. One, to show, of course, how technology can promote inclusion, can promote better healthcare in areas that have remote access to healthcare. Of course, this is one of the examples. The other is to show that if there is not a problem, if we cannot understand the problem, then we don't proceed, right? So this is the most important message of this. But actually, this is an example of one project that we do in one of our biggest areas that is very well represented in here today, which is health. It's a project that is very easy to show what is its impact. We have a problem. Malaria is difficult to diagnose, especially in these areas where there are no professionals. Another thing that we understand, not only talking, of course, to the health professionals that are involved, but talking to the people that do the exams, is that to detect and to diagnose malaria, you have to analyze a blood sample in 100 different positions. that are moved by hand. So somebody has to be on the microscope, moving by hand and analyzing in 100 different positions that blood sample. And and of course, there is not enough people available to do this with the knowledge that is needed to do this, and these people are expensive. And we are talking about remote areas, which is even more difficult to find these people. So what we thought is that we could combine this people, things, and intelligence perspective, our competencies, and build that. Basically, that is a microscope, an automatic microscope, completely built at our labs, that has a little entrance in the end to put the blood sample, and then it is entirely controlled by the smartphone. So it has electronics inside that augment the image. The smartphone that is on top has two purposes. One of them is to give energy to the microscope, of course. One of the purposes is that. The other is to control the entire microscope, the augmentation, the magnification, to acquire the images and to process this image to automatically detect the parasite of malaria in the blood sample and count this parasite in these samples. So this is an idea of, I could continue talking about this for a very long time. Of course, we evaluated also the impact of this, again, with the health professionals and with the people that are in the place to understand how we can improve, or if we are reaching the final goal of having impact in the lives of people. This is how we see the things that we do. But this is an example of, from one side, how the methodology that we use to develop these projects have in consideration real needs and people, and then how, in this case, visual computing, data science also can support inclusion in areas that have the need for that. So thank you very much.
So, good afternoon. I would like to start by congratulating the SPA for this initiative, and it's an honor to be here and share with you my thoughts about this so important team. Let me start by saying that by 2025, so in the next 2 years, companies around the world will produce, according to McKinsey & Company, an estimated 463 exabytes of data each day. And this compares with less than 3 exabytes of data a decade ago. So it's natural that most companies like my own have begun to address the operational aspects of data management, like determining how to build and maintain a data lake, how to integrate data scientists and data technology experts in our existing teams, and so on. Fewer companies, and actually my own company only started this effort 5 years ago, systematically considered starting to address the ethical aspects of data management, which could have a broad ramifications and responsibilities. If algorithms are trained and biased with biased data sets, or data sets that are breached, sold without consent, or otherwise mishandled, or, for instance, companies can incur significantly reputation and financial costs. And in my case, that could signify huge damage to my patients. So let me show you in the next slides what is in stake of this kind of problems in healthcare sector. Liliane already spoke about some beginning in research. Let's see what is in stake for provision of healthcare. Oops. Sorry. So first things first, in healthcare today, what we are talking about is about value-based medicine, and that means we have to have the best outcomes that matter to patients with the least possible costs of achieving these outcomes, and this is value. So I put an equation in here exactly to demonstrate that is, at the end of the day, this is data. To understand what value is in stake, we need data. Seems easy, doesn't it? But it isn't. Clinicians today deal with the complexity in multiple domains. First, the disease is very complex, as Liliana already spoke about. Then, diagnostic process is complex. This could be, this slide could be something in a factory. This is really complex to diagnose today. And the treatment is complex too. It involves a lot of disciplines, it involves a lot of equipment, it involves a lot of people. And workflow is very complex too. So this is a slide that shows you how in the NICE, that is an initiative in UK, had to the offices of the physicians, the general practitioners, for them to understand what they have to do in each kind of cancer. This is quite difficult, isn't it? And heading to this, each human being, and Sir William Osler, that was the founder of internal medicine 2 centuries ago, said that each human being is unique by design, not merely a construction. So every patient contact actually is research, isn't it, Liliana? Whether we admit it or not. So the guy said, if we are not for the great variability among individuals, medicine might well have been a science and not an art. And that's what you're talking about. I would say that in this room, half of the people takes omeprazole for, say in English, heartburn. And I can say to you that is a very good drug all over the world, but it's only, the efficacy of this drug is 1 in 25 patients, because we are different, and we don't metabolize the drugs the same way. So can you see here what we are jeopardizing here in terms of cost, in terms of value? And Crestor for cholesterol, 1 in 18. So that's what we call in precision medicine, not precision medicine. And so this means that we have to recognize the need to understand the full picture about the patient. And this means to understand the social circumstances impacts between 15 to 40% on the final outcome, the environment and the physical influences 5 to 20%, behavior of the patient 30 to 50% of the outcome, genetics 20 to 30%, medical care only 10 to 20%. And the relevant data is outside medical systems. This is huge, isn't it? And so what we aim is to have what we call the digital twin of the patient. And so this means a lot of managing a lot of data. And data that is sensible, because it's our health, it's our digital twin of what we are, beginning with our genetics. That's nothing, it's more intimate than this. So this is really difficult. So can the engineers help? I'm sorry, I'm an engineer, so. Can data scientists and all of us can help on this? Of course we can. So what we know is that we need a clear machine learning and artificial intelligence in healthcare, because most of the patient, as I just told you, patient-specific data is not linearly related, and I'm sure that Professor Wood could talk hours about this. So we need to address other ways to understand data that is not only linear regression, but classification trees, neural networks, and so on. That's what data scientists do. And we need to address natural language processes, massive data analysis, and artificial intelligence. When I learned in school, in university, how to operate the computer, typically we put data, we gave an algorithm, and we expected the result. That was how did programming 30 years ago. Today, automatic programming or machine learning or whatever you want to call, we give the data, we give the result, and we expect to obtain an algorithm. So this is really magnificent challenges that we have, but the result that we can have, it's also magnificent. So artificial intelligence in healthcare enables management of very complex medical scenarios by patient-centered data integration and modeling. And we can have outcome prediction of an intervention before we do it. We can have decision support tools. We can have chronic disease management and so on. So what's in stake in healthcare is trillions of savings and better outcomes for patients and for the society. We came from 2 years of a pandemic, and we know, I think all the society understood that there is no economy without health, and there's no health without economy. And so all of these are integrated and very important to all of us. Of course, physicians, they don't like this, because physicians want to understand cause and effect, and they don't like black boxes, and that's what you're talking about, and that's why ethics comes to here, okay? And so what we are working is that we have to move from rule-based algorithms to learning-based ones. So this means, and it's, how can I explain this? It's from moving from knowing that to knowing how, and this is very difficult for a physician, because we don't know the rules exactly. We don't have a book to train our kids to know how to ride a bicycle, but somehow they learn to do it, and they do it very well. Or it's different from a physicist that know exactly what you have to do in that game, and the guy that plays the game, he's not a physicist, but he knows how to do it. And that's what we're asking physicians to do. So moving from knowing that to knowing how. And this is a huge change in healthcare system, and implies a huge data ethics. And the question that everybody does here is that, will artificial intelligence or data science will replace the physician? Of course not, because there's a third dimension of knowledge, that is why. Why? Domain knowledge is critical for success in every stage of data science process, starting with the problem definition, data clinical, and feature engineering. Feature engineering is the most important discipline in upcoming years for artificial intelligence, performance management, and so on. So deep learning doesn't have any explanatory power. A black box cannot investigate the case. The algorithm can solve the case, but it cannot build the case. So this is really, really very important. And the ethics and the way we manage data and the way we put our algorithms in place means that we need physicians, we need domain knowledge. This is not only an engineering thing. And of course, at the end of the day, healthcare is about people, and we should not forget that health system is occupied by a unique encounter between one set of people who need services, patients, and another who have been entrusted to deliver them. So this is just to claim your attention and say that we defined data ethics as data-related practices that seek to preserve the trust of our patients, of our employees, our partners. That is the definition for me of what is data ethics. And leave you with the last question, that is, will a robot be able to generate human empathy? This is a question that all physicians do. And for my generation, that we grew up with Star Wars, and we all loved the SR2 and so on, and now today that nice nurse in the Euro 6, or recently the Finch. So this is just food for thought, because artificial intelligence will be here. And this again will pose an enormous problem of data ethics, because these robots will influence your behavior, will influence people all around the world. And that's it. I hope you're not overwhelmed with this, but healthcare, data ethics starts with in healthcare, and is one of the most important sectors to discuss this. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. So I'm lost, and here's an example of diversities of ways of looking at data science and the theme about diversity, equity, and inclusion. I come from the corporate world, so I'm not in an exciting world as the world of science and education. I come from the boring world of corporate, investment, and entrepreneurship. There's something to say about it. So my reflection goes on 3 points. Why is it important? And Teresa started exactly her presentation saying that this theme about diversity, equity, and inclusion is very important, and data science are very important because we're talking about the well-being of people. Now let's look from the corporate perspective. Why is it so important? So I'll start with that. Why is it important? Then we'll have a look and go through some reflections on what is the reality. I will not tell you much about Portugal. There are not many data. Maybe there are. I haven't found it. But I was very worried on getting data that was recent, 2021, 2022. That's the numbers that I'll be talking about in the reality. Because if we have it, let's look at today and not of tomorrow. And so that's where I'm going to focus. And at the end, let's look at some key perspectives, some ideas, just to trigger some conversation and discussion. So why is it important? I mean, and we all know, right? There are studies that say that diverse teams increase creativity, increase innovation. Of course, it's natural. Different backgrounds have different approaches, different solutions. And we always look at one ecosystem and we wonder why? Why is Silicon Valley so successful in the entrepreneurial area? Well, there are many facts for sure, but one thing is true. Silicon Valley was created by a very diverse group of people. Immigrants created Silicon Valley, so it is at the root of the explanation of that boost of creativity. So there's an example of that. Then we have studies from Forbes that say that diverse companies have 1.7 times more chances of being innovative. They are more innovative, almost in a very significant way. And when we look at advertising, and let's look at some examples. Unilever, just an example because we've all see it. Look, one of the brands that we see every day on Dove, we used to have these ladies there had this idea of magnificent bodies. Why did they change to people like us that have cellulitis, that have problems in their skin? Because I can relate to that, so I will buy it because it has something to do with me, not some ideal and fancy idea of a gorgeous lady that I am not. I am reality. So it gets very useful in terms of business approach to reality and the market. Then let's look at the millennials. We don't understand about the millennials, right? And there was some conversation already today about that. Now, the millennials, and the Gallup report has studied, says that for every job vacancy, 1 in 3 potential candidates do not take a job vacancy if they understand the company to be lacking diversity. Why? Because we know that millennials have a different approach and they want to fit and they want to be heard. So there's another reason to take it seriously. Then looking at the areas of profitability, right? If we're not in the business for profit, we're in show business, so that's something that we have to talk about. McKinsey has showed that companies in the top quartile of diversity from an ethnical and cultural perspective are 33% more likely to be industry leaders in profitability. On the other hand, the ones that are on the bottom of this area have 29% less likely to achieve above average profitability. So it is not only an enabler of best and success from a profitability point of view, but it just brings other companies down if diversity is not there. And finally, let's look at these glamorous VC, private equity firms, where exits are all about success, or success is all about exits. Also, companies that have more diverse teams, from particularly an ethical point of view, this is where this study has put its emphasis, have 30% higher exits in terms of multiples than non-diverse teams. So the average exit from a diverse team, a company that has a diverse team, is 3.26 times versus non-diverse teams whose exit has a multiple of 2.5. So it touches our pocket. It is also very, very important. Now, what is the reality? I mean, coming from the basis, investment, funding, what helps and fuels company to grow, there is a huge VC-backed number of companies, particularly since 2015 to 2021, a huge market. But when we look, and in fact in 2021, the value of the market was $96 billion just in the US. 77% of the VC dollars are in companies that have white men founders. 77%. Less than 10% goes to companies with women founders, and less than 1% goes to companies that have black founders. So there's a huge discrepancy between representation of people and the access to wealth, and so the possibility of creating a better world. Now, the problem starts with how VC firms are composed. When we look at VC, private equity, what do we see? Very homogeneous groups. Generally, the population has 30% of white men, right? Well, in the investment arena, 58% of people are white men. And do you know how much do they handle in terms of the wealth in the investment? 93%. So it's a huge discrepancy. White women also account for 30% of the population. We're talking about the US. 11% of them are VC partners. And do you know how much they manage? 3% of the wealth. So the rest is the rest, and we're talking about 4%. So there's a big discrepancy. So looking at the UK, now we're talking about Europe, 76% of VCs are white, 70% are men. And look at this closed club. 33% of them come from either Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, or Stanford, and that's it. So there are very different kinds of diversity when we talk. It's not only about gender, it's not only about ethnicity, it's not only about capabilities. It's looking at the world from the different perspectives and colors. And that's something that we should also think, because there's a lot of conversation going on, particularly in certain areas, women and men, but diversity is much more than that. And if we look at diversity only from a women to men perspective, we forget that this issue is a society issue, not an issue of men or women, disabilities, people that have different sexual orientations. It's a problem of our full society where each of us has something to play. Now, let's now, because I'm going to close, what can be done? First, DEI must be something that is really seriously seen from the top. Because if the top leadership from companies don't take it seriously, don't walk the talk, we will be sending a very confused message to the rest. And by far, this is not a theme that goes to the HR department. Let the HR take care of that, or let's find a DEI manager that can handle it. Finance needs to be aware of it, because where our money puts, where our mouth is, where our money is where importance is. The profile of investments. How do we tackle that? In terms of R&D and production, the way that products are developed, not only from a market point of view, but how are the processes going to continue considering the diversity of this market? From the sales and marketing point of view, what kind of communications are we putting out there? What kind of relationships are we having with our clients and our stakeholders? And so this is far bigger issue than the HR department. Then investing in early stage is really, really important, because we go to the root of where it starts, of where companies start. And here there is a big discussion about quotas. Quotas is probably not a good way to tackle early investment, lack of diversity in early stages, because there will be people that say, we cannot have quotas because we don't have projects. So maybe one way to tackle that is to create specific vehicles, specific funds that tackle specific lack of diversity, inclusion, and equity problems, so that we say, I am here, and the people that relate to that will come. Because who believes that only white men or white women or whatever are good entrepreneurs? That's something not possible. Then the other way is to take responsibility, educate, show real examples, and another thing. This is not about trying to change people. The people change approach can be very negative and can be very personally taken, and so create a lot of barriers. Let's try and change the processes, go to the root of things, explain, do the work, not from a personal point of view. Then, in terms of data science, that's why we're here, right? So, in terms of data science can be a fundamental 360 degrees instrument to shape D&I. And let's not forget, that very importantly, data science has exponential effects. So what happens in this area can really influence the world. We're not talking about small data, we're talking about big numbers of data and big number of people that we can influence. So starting from the fairness level, and the fairness level starts from developing a conscientious data analysis strategy, preparation, and model iteration. So at the beginning, we need to have a fair approach because garbage in, garbage out. Then let's move to a higher level of purpose. And then data science can really do extensive showcasing, visualization of results that feed into new models and with its programming, and it can really affect in terms of time. Finally, it's focused on the business purpose and objectives. This is not about only fairness. Fairness is at the root. Doing well, having a better society is for sure very, very important. But let's look at what is the leader's role and what is their responsibility. Their responsibility is to use resources to the best. So not using talent to its full extent. It's really an obligation. It's an act of good management and an act of good corporate governance. So not doing so is factual wrongdoing and careless leadership. So I want to finish this conversation saying, and I think everyone has touched that, D&I is a matter of people. And there's an old model that looks at barriers to change, which also applies here. Applies to product, but it also applies here, the famous 4A's model. So it has a lot to do with awareness. I know about it, I understand it, it's important for me, a heart. So yes, we can use data, yes, we can use these models, but the heart has to be there. Then the availability. I can access to it, I have information, and I can act on it. Affordability. I have the resources, and the end results compensate the costs. And finally, it's a matter of acceptance. I embrace change, and I see myself as an ambassador of change. And that starts at the top. Thank you.
Now we'll have, I have my microphone. Now we'll have more 15 to 20 minutes of 3 or 4 rounds here with some questions that I think will enlighten some of the issues that we have been listening to. And I will begin with with a question that I think is general for all of the 4 speakers. It's about how people perceive algorithms as good or bad. They are not good or bad in abstract. They are as good or as bad as people behind them, but most of the people nowadays don't understand how they are being nudged or punished when they are having some behaviors. What should we already have done to enlighten this for general society or to make data common ground for everyone or for every citizen using Facebook or some simulator of credit or something that looks for our best offer to this trip that we want to do? Who wants to begin?
So as far as I understand their question, how we make people that are not studying data science to believe more in its importance and in the results that come.
Be aware that there are people behind data, there are people behind the algorithms.
Well,
they don't work on themselves.
I don't know, it's a difficult question. I can just say that my impression is that I have been talking with several colleagues, even people working in companies, that the algorithms and the names of the algorithms, but I think they don't try to explain, for example, people that are going to receive the results in a simple way, in a summarized way, what these algorithms exactly do and why they come to these results, or not. Sometimes the result is not positive. And you have to I think people should worry more in, of course, in simplifying, we have always the risk of not being so rigorous. But we have to take this risk to explain people in a simple language, in a summarized way, what these algorithms do, they are for what, and why we think they are going to be successful.
Very well. So, of course, education was already mentioned, so I think it's, of course, a very important activity and a very important task that we need to do. There are others, there are ongoing activities. We have the AI European Act that is being developed that actually classifies these algorithms into risk levels and imposes or will impose some actions depending on the impact of those algorithms, being, of course, health as one of the toppest risk levels, identified as one of the toppest risk levels. There are several activities also in Portugal that are being developed to deal with that. We are part of one project that is starting right now, this Center for Responsible AI, which joins a huge consortium to discuss and to think exactly about that. So how can we develop, how can we ensure that AI is responsible in several levels? I argue, as I argued in there, that the inclusion of society is absolutely essential in this kind of initiatives. And of course, and just to reinforce a little bit what has been said, this explainability of the algorithms, that was already mentioned too, and the capability of investing more on ensuring the capability of these algorithms to explain what they are doing, being it from the data science point of view, so the algorithm itself including that, or from the human interface point of view, right? So that the way we present to the user this kind of outputs are better explained. But I agree, and we have that issue a lot of times outside of the health area, in the normal industry area, that we develop an algorithm, but even the outcome of it, because an algorithm fails, and this is a very important point, right? The algorithm doesn't work, doesn't solve the world, right? It's a tool, it's an hypothesis, and we have to keep on. So how it fails and what it means, and this is very, very difficult to explain, and it's a true difficulty, a challenge, I think.
Well, just to add that at the point where I am now, and your question is very, very important, I'm starting at the point of explaining physicians and giving literacy to physicians in order then to understand what are behind the algorithms, and Liliana already told everything about that. So we really need to move to the next step and have in the conduct and ethics of each company, we have to be very careful in explaining our customers in each business what it means to share data with us, what's in there for the clients. But today, everybody is looking inside our companies, trying to explain how we can use because physicians, they don't like black boxes, like I said. And so I'm now working with engineering universities in order to, and trying to convince the medical association that physicians need to have more literacy in using data science. So starting inside, but saying this, the society has to understand what companies do with our data, and we have all the social media and so on, and I think that people they don't understand exactly what they are giving to Facebook, to Instagram, to TikTok, and so on, and that they are using our data. They know much more than we do about us, and the governments are still giving the first steps in order to regulate all of this. So your question is very important. I don't have the answer. So today I'm acting like, Mafaldinha, that I'm trying to clean my own house and trying to do my best inside my company, but it's definitely a very important thing that we have to address in the upcoming years. And, well, initiatives like this one are very important to start the awareness of society.
Yes, but here we are talking to the faithful, because everyone has a common ground about
everything as a beginning. So we have to move on.
So, there's a lot that was said already. There was a lot that was said already. I would just add education for sure, all of that. I would add also civic civic responsibility. It's not to take the algorithm did it and set it as an answer. I remember when my kid was little, I used to tell him, you cannot take, when you ask a question, don't take just because. Why? Because. Or because not, because yes. So I think that as citizens, enlightened citizens, we cannot accept and take that the algorithm didn't for a reason. There are companies, and in fact, I have looked at a couple of companies that work exactly in that area of giving transparency to algorithms and are able to make it more legible, let's say. So I think there are newcomers into the market that also need to have that visibility, because we know, but there are a lot of people that don't know that they have the right to have access to that. And then there's another thing, because there are different areas, health is one of them, but for instance, when I go and get a credit, and if someone tells me you cannot get a credit, and I want to know why, and the guy that is explaining to me says, because it's the algorithm, it's not something that we are doing a good service to anyone, because it only raises suspicion. So I think that the professionals that work in this area also need to have the civic responsibility of wanting to know more and defending the clients that they are working with.
And it concerns also justice, because there's a lot of experiences being done in justice field, in law field, and we know that for some reports that it didn't go well, because if, as you said, garbage in, garbage out, and you are just continuing with discrimination and lack of inclusion. So I would like to take an issue that Professor Teresa had highlighted in our previous talk about talent and the lack of talent, and why should we worry in Portugal that maybe we will not have enough talent we need for the next steps in this field of data science. You are very convinced that we should look at immigration with much more attention and with a strategic plan in order to have more diversity at university, and also to have not only more talent but more diversity in the beginning of all the process. What is being done already, and what do you think it should be done?
Well,
Teresa,
I don't think that...
Ruth, peço imensa desculpa por interromper. I'm being told that I have to be the meanest guy on the room and to make sure that your next answer is like the last one per each of the speakers. Okay. So we have like one round to go and we wrap it up. Okay? Thank you so much.
One round and quick.
This round or another round?
This is it.
We
Yes.
didn't talk about ethics.
We're coming back tomorrow.
Okay. I don't think that there is lack of talent in the population, young population of Portugal today. But I think that also, as it has been said here several times, all of us, the education, and the education not only formal, but you learn a lot just going out with your colleagues, studying with them. And I think, and Paula gave very good examples, that diverse teams can be more productive. And I think that if you have students that had different educations, different culture, and put them together, you will get better results. You will get better education in the broad sense, even at a higher level, post-graduation research teams. If they have people that had different paths to get there, they come and they are able to interact with each other. The result, I think it's better. So I think, for example, I remember the first time I went to the United States for a semester. I was doing my PhD. When I arrived there, I didn't get more talent or less, but it was a great experience for me. I had the opportunity of talking not only with people from the United States, but from the Czech Republic, from Mexico, from Egypt, and this was fantastic. I was learning lots of things also about life, and that is important for your work. And I think, I repeat, we know that we receive in the universities many requests, especially from young people from Portuguese-speaking countries, and we want to have them. The teachers, the colleagues, we want to have them. Why all these difficulties? Make it simple for them to come. I don't understand why they have to pay more than the real cost. The real cost of studying here at universities is around 5,000 euros a year, maybe now more because of the... Why to pay 7,000? So this is maybe as a community, if we start to talk about this, maybe the responsible at the government level understand that this would be great for Portugal.
Ruth, if you want, I can connect to the ethics. Yes, can I? Okay.
Researchers and bias and all of that.
It's just that I was listening and I was thinking actually about ethics. I think, yeah, it is working now. And just the simple connection is that I believe that without this diversity, without this multiple views, without this multiple experience, there is no ethics. So we cannot ensure diversity, you cannot ensure the development, and I go to the development of solutions that ensure real impact and positive impact into the society or into the businesses, that create value, that create profit to all those things. And so I would argue that one of the key points to reaching this ethics is ensuring that from the beginning people think, people question, people include in their development process the effort of understanding who will use it, how it will impact, how it will impact in ways that we don't even imagine. And I go back to healthcare just to give an example. We had a solution. We do frequently, well, before pandemic, to be honest, but we do sessions with philosophers in our premises to discuss what we are doing, how it will be used, and how it could be used, and how it could impact people. And one of the things that in one of the sessions came up is that we had a solution that would help to detect melanoma in some skin photos. And we were doing some experiences with that, some pilots with that, and physicians were super happy because it integrated with the informatics system and it made the process much more agile, so they were super excited. But we understood by talking with them that there was a group of people that was not adhering to it, which was women of older age that were asked to take pictures of their own body at home. And for them, this was extremely complicated. How would they take a picture and send to the doctor? So it was not even the technological point of view, because that was made easy. It was the cultural point of view that was extremely difficult to overcome that obstacle. So suddenly, we were introducing a technology that could, in the limit, prevent good health care to older women that were using the technology. So just the fact that we were thinking and discussing this made us just open. We don't have a solution for that, but at least made us open the eyes that whatever we could do could be, whatever we are doing could be used in so many ways that could be positive or not, and we need to be aware of that.
You want a different question?
I would like to listen from you about this thing of ethics concerning digital twins and concerning how I can be a patient aware of my rights, and at the same time, how can an hospital or a researcher tell me and teach me what can I extract from my experience of giving access to my data and also being part of something that is more than me. It's a contribution to something like Liliana was saying, to this example of the older women, to some that is more important to society and not only for one of us.
Okay. What I used to say to my people, data scientists and so on, is if you're not solving a problem for the patient, what are you solving? And that is the basics for using the data from the patient. So here, at the end of the day, what we have to prove to the patients is that the outcomes will be better because we are doing this or we are doing that. And so that's the first things first in healthcare, the best outcomes at the lower cost possible. And that must be a long way in terms of regulation, in terms of the outcomes meaning something, because if the risk justification it's not correct, if we are not talking about the same ways of measuring results, we are not measuring anything and we are not comparing anything. So there's a long way for regulation in our country in order to all the providers be able to compare results, compare what is the best hospital that is proving the best outcomes for that specific condition, whatever. So a long way to solve and to solve data actually, and benchmarking and not comparing oranges with onions and so on. But that's the point. Today, people, they don't know actually what is the best hospital to treat each condition, because you don't have any agency in Portugal that can tell you that. Okay? And if you ask me, one of the most important initiatives that a government should take in healthcare in the upcoming years would be that one. Transparency. We have to be aware that today no one in Portugal knows what is the best hospital to treat their disease. And if we know, even when we know,
you can't do anything with it.
You cannot choose that. Mm-hmm. You have to go to the hospital in your residency area, okay? And so this is something is food for thought again. But again, comes with data, transparency, measuring the same outcomes, regulation.
Around this matter, I see Guilherme very nervous. He's really shaking. So on this matter, I think that we are really at the root of what the meaning of people is. We are talking about fear and courage. The courage to explain and to be challenged, to say what we want to say about the issues, and the fear of being questioned, and because the algorithms are not always right, the doctor's not only always right, the leader is not always right. So we build this lack of transparency because it fits and it serves someone. So I think that there's an area where business schools don't act. Business schools, medical schools, research, in general, don't act, which is in a very important characteristic of leaders, which is courage. And for me, this new world of data science and artificial intelligence is really questioning the root basis of our existence and our fears and courage, and that's just that.
I think it's a great way to finish this conversation, so thank you so much.
I'm so terribly sorry that we had to hurry up. We could be here for much longer time. We have 98 people following us online right now. It's for sure because of the interest of the panel, of your interventions and the contents. We've recorded it. We're going to have it online. We're going to be sharing it, and for sure we got to do it once again because it was tremendous value. And thank you so very much, all of you, for joining us.